with 1 lap to go. Norris has passed, and now Tramnitz is attacking us. We have to go defensive and fend off Tramnitz. It is an inter-team battle for a moment, and that small inter-team moment of having to defend Tramnitz may just cost us the title. Who would have thought the inter-team battle of us two still being both as teammates in the title fight may have just cost us both here, because I'm unable to keep up with Norris as we go through the last sector under the hotel section. It's all coming down to this. Verstappen wins. One last corner. We send it out the inside. We're neck and neck. Drag race to the line. No!
It's certainly been an incredible year for Formula One, and our drivers have pushed themselves this season, making it one of the most compelling years of racing in history.
Breaking news going into this new Formula One season. The reigning Constructors' champions are breaking up as Porsche and Aarava Archer Racing mutually agreed to stop their partnership. Porsche, though, are rumoured to be eyeing up a new deal with a new team on the F1 grid to remain in the sport. Meanwhile, a plethora of brands have tried to vie for Aarava Archer Racing's partnership into next season, whilst Cadillac will enter Formula One as the second American team on the grid, taking over for an existing outfit which is yet to be announced. With competition from various manufacturers the healthiest it's ever been in the sport, but there could be some turmoil for the reigning champions. Their board members overrule the team principal to sack both their drivers as they welcome in a new but familiar brand into the fold.
Oh yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is right. It is time for a new era in this F1 25 My Team career mode, as we are in the British racing green of Aarava Jaguar Racing. A familiar but old name returns to Formula One, and I'm sure for those of you that have been watching me since the F1 My Driver days, a nice little nod and tip of the hat to that series with Jaguar back in Formula One. And a lot is changing, not just our team, but everywhere on the grid, as we have got some huge changes in R&D, and we've got an all-new challenge. We are no longer going to be right up there at the top of the grid from the get-go. We're going to have to work a little bit after that R&D reset to aero and durability. And on top of that, because clearly 5 seasons in, the game naturally is not giving us much of a challenge financially, especially so, but you know, there's not a lot to do with development and trying to chase performance. We are starting in the worst position possible when it comes to our brand new engine. The Jaguar engine down on power compared to the options of the Honda, Mercedes, and Ferrari engine. And so we are going to have to try and make up in other departments and try and find some lap time elsewhere with this car. Of course, we know from season to season, a lot can change with the car characteristics. So let's see how things change into this one. But speaking of change, there is plenty everywhere, because we are changing our drivers, and both of them, in fact, because the board of directors have overruled me. And initially, we were just going to get rid of one of our drivers, and we actually pursued Oscar Piastri. This is halfway through last season, this footage is from, as we tried to sign Piastri quite early on into the contract window phase, because at this point he was performing really well, but we were also seeing Red Bull pissing him off by not giving him a consistent car. So we swooped in just when Red Bull started to let him down and tried to go for him then.
Okay, set. Now we wait. Hopefully we'll hear back soon, but these things do tend to drag on. Let's keep our fingers crossed and just focus on what we can control. I'll let you know if I hear anything.
And because, I guess, it was such a torrid time for Piastri at that point in the season, we signed him immediately. So this was just after the Italian Grand Prix. We had secured Piastri's services whilst he was down in 5th place at this point in the championship, remember, having led the entire first third of the season. So, you know, very, very understandable why he was so eager to jump ship. But as for the second driver, for a lot of the season, I thought we were going to remain with one of either Leclerc or Tramnit. But following that very decisive finale race where both our drivers got in each other's ways effectively, maybe on the last lap, to deny either of them winning the Drivers' Championship, we have been overruled. We must change the second driver as well. And so late on, I'm literally talking after Abu Dhabi had finished. That's all the time we had. This short 2-week window, if that, in the timeline to sign someone. I had to go for a free agent. I couldn't play around with someone already in a team. And so we've gone for the one that got away. Andrea Kimi Antonelli. We tried to sign him, remember, in Season 2, Season 3, but he was tied down until now. He's been a free agent for a whole season, isn't it? So it was a no-brainer. We've gone for Antonelli, and of course, being a free agent, we have secured Antonelli. So we are now entering a new era of Aarava Jaguar Racing with an all-new lineup of Antonelli and Piastri. A very exciting young pairing. I suppose maybe not as young anymore in 2029 in-game. And now in British Racing Green. This really does feel like all change when it comes to this series. A clean slate completely. The drivers, the team identity, the engine, the car performance, and thankfully an R&D reset, so the entire grid is going to change around a little bit. But this is our new challenger for Season 5, throwing it back to the original Jaguar F1 team look from the early 2000s. With a British Racing Green, I've gone for a metallic finish because you guys seem to really like the metallic green when we did that one-off Vegas livery last year. So taking some inspiration from that last season. HSBC, just as they were, as the main side pod sponsor, and I think we've worked it out really well with this new modern era shape F1 car. We've got the hits of white on the front wing end plates and the wing flaps as the rear wing as well. The halo obviously wasn't a thing back in the early 2000s, but I think a really nice contrasting red to offset with the racing green. Also obviously matches the accents of red lines we've got going on between the white and the green part. Of course, the subtle Aarava chevron logos over the engine cover, but in stark contrast to previous liveries, my logo no longer front and center on the engine cover. That iconic Jaguar logo screaming across the top of the engine cover. I love it. I'm in love with it, and I hope you guys are as well. And I hope you guys are going to fall in love with the 4 variant liveries that we're going to have over the course of this season. Castrol, XJS, a nod to a very iconic Jaguar racing car back in the day. Silk Cut, a probably more iconic livery itself that won at Le Mans. And then Panasonic for a more modern tip of the hat to Jaguar racing in motorsport. And these are the races that we're going to be going to in Season 5. We're going to be starting off with the fan favourite Down Under in Australia before going to Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, then hopping over to an earlier start for the European portion of the season for the Monaco Grand Prix, to Spain, the usual odd hop over to Canada before resuming the European leg. It's Austria, the normal way round, and a welcome return to the British Grand Prix the right way round. Once again, as we've done the reverse version for 2 seasons in a row, I felt like it was time to just get the old school British Grand Prix back for this season. Then we go to Belgium. We do have a reverse track still in this season. It's reverse Zandvoort, which will be chaotic as ever. Then we go to Monza. Baku then starts the flyaway. Singapore, and then a unique different run-in for the end of this season as we go to Sao Paulo. Vegas is the penultimate race, the gambling Grand Prix on this calendar is going to set up then the finale at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. I think that has potential to blow whatever title race there is wide open with the nature of Vegas and the overtaking you can do, and then ending with Abu Dhabi. That has been a really good race for us on this game for title deciders. And as ever was the case last season, this season again, our team, you'll notice the AMO logos on the side and the inside of the halo, as once again AMO is sponsoring some of the mods in this season and the team itself. AMO, a collective of modders making some fantastic content that you can download for PC versions of the F1 game, from F1 25, there's F1 24, F1 23, even if you still play it then, but a lot of awesome mods constantly being made. And to that effect, what you're about to see is a refresh of some of the teams thanks to some AMO members. And if you want to check any of them out, there'll be links down below in the description to the specific mods, but also the AMO Discord as a whole. But now let's get into revealing the brand new grid for this season and the corresponding driver transfers. Of course, we just talked you through our team with Oscar Piastri at 96 overall, and Antonelli, despite sitting on the sidelines, I'm pretty sure for 2 seasons, wasn't it, as a free agent, he's grown to 94, just showing you the, you know, deep coding potential that is there with Antonelli's AI, that he sat on the sidelines and grown to 84. God forbid he would have had a drive in a top team. He probably would have been like 97 or 98 by now, which is why it's such a travesty, I think, that he was a free agent for this long. So I'm happy we've rectified that and got the driver that got away. But even though we've got 2 over 90 rated drivers, there will be some big challenges for this season. A question mark over the tyre wear, because last season it was really tough to handle. I'm hoping it's better this season to maybe counteract potentially a lack of engine power with that Jaguar engine you saw earlier in the video. And then, of course, we're a bit lower down in the R&D chart relative to other teams from the reset. So we're going to have to work quite hard in the first few races to catch back up and get the car at least back to kind of where it was. And I'm sure one team that will be very happy to see maybe that struggle for us is Mercedes, as they have the reigning world champion now, 99 rated Lando Norris, but they failed to even come second in the constructors. So they're going to really be hoping that we're struggling in this first part of the season, because that may just give them the head start they need to try and finally go back to winning ways as a constructor. But they've already shown that there's potential there, and they got the job done individually with Lando Norris last season. But of course, that finale race could have gone a completely different way. But, you know, for the first time last season, it felt like Mercedes were getting back to those kind of dominant, consistent ways of the olden days, of those, you know, the early V6 era days. So Mercedes maybe on the up and up, and I'm sure taking a lot of momentum from that final race in Abu Dhabi. And speaking of that final race, of course, Porsche and ourselves decided to part ways because of that final race and all the problems through the season. But they haven't left Formula One. They have now partnered up with Williams and debut an all-new look that's heavily influenced by their Formula E livery. And so it's a purple, black and red number with this Williams Porsche partnership. You can see a lot of Porsche branding, but the subtle Williams W still there on the engine cover, and the Williams logo still on the front nose, as Porsche take a big stake in the Williams team. A Williams team that's been improving so much and was surprising us with some really great results and some fantastic speed at times last season. Yuki Tsunoda is now 91 rated, and to be honest, I'm actually more impressed by Paul Aaron, the way he's grown to 82. You know, I really doubted Aaron's addition to the F1 grid when he came in earlier in the series, but he's actually grown to be a really really decent driver, and I think complements Tsunoda as more of the team leader and allows him to be that team leader. So it's a good dynamic, I think. And, you know, like with the next team we'll talk about, Aramco Honda, Williams were the other team kind of ruffling the feathers, surprising us and embarrassing teams like Ferrari, for example, by comfortably beating them over the course of last season. And like I just said, Aramco Honda was another one. I mean, Honda, the Honda Works team here from last season, they're going to retain their striking and now I feel iconic look of white, red and black with the Japanese colors draped over this chassis, and they retain Liam Lawson, but they have actually swapped out. No longer is Franco Colapinto driving for them alongside Lawson, but it's Gabriele Bortoleto. Bortoleto has left Audi and joined the improving Honda. So now Bortoleto is the best driver of this duo, 88 rated, Liam Lawson 87. This is a really strong and exciting lineup, especially Bortoleto. Bortoleto actually was impressing quite a lot in that pretty horrendous Audi last season. So, honestly, I'm very excited to see what he could do in this very competitive Honda, which many times was breaking into the top 5, and especially in that last part of the season, last season, was fighting for even top 3 places consistently. So like with Williams Porsche now, can we expect this team to continue their charge up the field? The thing is with that, other teams then have to give to allow these teams to really get up there. So only time will tell. Now, coming to an all-new team on the F1 grid, BMW wave goodbye to Formula 1 yet again, and now Cadillac enters the grid as the second American team on this grid, and they've taken over BMW. That obviously was a takeover of Racing Bulls being sold off from the Red Bull family. So now it's gone through 2 changes and lands on Cadillac, with Andretti obviously also partnering up with them. And although this team's livery and setup looks very exciting, unfortunately, with the nature of what this team used to be, BMW used to be VCARB, the driver transfers here have been a little bit uninspiring. They've still got Zane Maloney and Victor Martins there, 79 rated. It's still a decent enough pairing. Like, it's not like low 70s. So this pairing, you know, if the car is actually somewhat okay, could bring up a few surprises. But obviously, you would hope to have a bit more of an exciting lineup in a team like Cadillac, or just maybe a familiar name to try and steer the ship. But we've seen this now over the last 2 seasons, even though there have been a plethora of driver transfers now finally happening in my team with the settings, you know, with the added improvements for this year's game. It's still maybe lacking a little bit of intelligence of what actually constitutes exciting and interesting transfers and actually getting some of the big names into these teams. Because, for example, George Russell, I can confirm to you guys, is still sat on the sidelines as a free agent. I think he would have been a perfect pick to go to Cadillac here, for example, or just step into the seat of that Honda or the Williams Porsche. But no, he's a free agent. I don't know what the logic is behind the scenes. I don't know whether the game, none of these AI teams have the money to spend on a George Russell. I really don't know what the behind the scenes coding would be preventing Russell, you know, being on the grid again. And he's not been on the grid now for what, 3 seasons. So yeah, it is a bit of a shame, and there are going to be other drivers as well in that same realm as we now move back on to going through our teams, and we come to a team, well, who was in the absolute pits of despair last season with an ERS battery that was like an AA battery, really, it would seem, or an array of Duracell batteries, because Ferrari, having one of their worst seasons ever, need to dust themselves off and go again. But they stick with their lineup of Albon and Ocon, maybe for logical reasons of Albon's 92 rated, Ocon's still pretty decent at 88. And also, to be fair, the logic might be for the AI team, you know, they've had such a difficult season. It wasn't it was such a bad one that maybe they just don't have the funds to secure better drivers, or drivers don't want to drive for them after such a bad season. So you can maybe see the logic of why Ferrari are stuck with Albon and Ocon for another season. if their car improves, maybe they can entice some transfers into the following season. But for now, they're going to have to try and just reset a little bit. And they're hoping to do so with a WEC-inspired yellow and red livery, hoping to channel some of the championship winning vibes from the hypercar class. Red Bull Ford go through a refresh and they return to their classic red and yellow bull on the engine cover and the nose cone after a very different livery last season. And those of you who watch my F1 24 series will actually find this livery familiar, as we actually had this in the F1 24 series with the lovely two-tone blue for the Ford and Red Bull colors coming together and uniting on the car and also the overalls, which this season are worn by, once again, Pierre Gasly, who becomes the new team leader after we nicked Piastri from Red Bull. And Franco Colapinto, he's grown to 90 rated, and he finds himself in Red Bull, one of the top teams. Colapinto, for a driver who officially wasn't even on the F1 grid in the F1 game until the recent update, in our series, he's really found his footing, had some great seasons at Honda, and now finds himself in Red Bull alongside Gasly, which I think is quite nice, actually, because there was that rumor some time ago that Colapinto was being hunted by the Red Bull family to go in the Racing Bulls car at one point. So this is kind of making that rumor mill true, basically, a couple of years down the line alongside the Frenchman. We now come to one of the saddest stories in the F1 25 series here. Audi. I mean, this livery is so epic, as always with all these modded liveries. Links down below in the description. It's such a heater, and it's just such a shame that we've seen this team do absolutely nothing. For whatever reason, this AI team can just not catch up to the grid fully. They had some flashes and moments of brilliant last season, I think mostly because of Bortoletto's genius as an AI driver, but he's left Audi now, he's joined Honda, and so Audi are left with Jack Crawford and Taylor Barnard, who is a new debut on the F1 grid, but it's a really uninspiring lineup, isn't it? It just does not inspire an Audi that is going to go anywhere anytime soon. You know, ruining the past F1 games where we could see Sebastian Vettel in the Audi, for example, in F1 22. This team, I can't imagine is going to improve any more than they have done in previous seasons, unfortunately. But at least they'll look good trying to. Speaking of looks, an all-new look and colour injection to the grid, as it's your favourite sponsor, BWT. They're back with Haas, as I did completely take on board the feedback from you guys saying that you wanted a bit more different variants in color on this season's grid. And so no more do we have multiple teams having that red, white and black, or white color scheme. We've got some real color on the grid this season with some of the teams we've seen so far. And obviously a very striking color here with BWT. They have retained the same lineup as last season, which, again, like with the Audi lineup, unfortunately is a little bit uninspiring. I feel like a lot of these smaller teams have really been hurt with the way the driver system transfer works on this year's game. Although I praised it for being better with some of the big names, moving teams and moving top teams, because also of the limited nature of the driver market and maybe just a bit of weird logic with how teams sign drivers, they're just going for these lower rated F2 drivers, and it's a very uninspiring market, really, and a very lackluster one that doesn't get you that excited. What does get me excited is looking at this car, and hopefully we'll be seeing a little bit more of it than we did last season, but well, that will remain to be seen as we now move on to Monster McLaren MasterCard. I mean, all two of those sponsors, big prominence on this season's all-new look for McLaren, and they still have the very exciting signing of Max Verstappen, who very much could have still been in the title fight last season. He did such a good job of dragging that McLaren to places where it just didn't deserve to be, or at least where Lance Stroll, his still current teammate, can't drag it to. And so Verstappen will continue to outshine Lance Stroll, I'm sure, and show where the car can actually be, and then McLaren will suffer in the constructors with where Stroll places. But, you know, it's just a little bit of an improvement, and maybe the R&D, you know, reset can bring that. Maybe Verstappen has a proper good chance of being right there till the end in Season 5 with the title fight. As we now come to the final team on this grid, and it's a throwback to, I think at this point, a fan favorite era of the Renault team. It's yellow and black for the French outfit as they retain their lineup of Jack Doohan and Zach O'Sullivan. And to my surprise, quite a few times at the end of last season, somehow they were actually getting up there. They were surprising us, being in the top 10, actually being cars and drivers we had to overtake in the race, as they did actually improve. One of the few teams that actually had some room to grow in the R&D chart, and actually did grow, unlike Sauber / Audi. So Renault, who knows really, with the R&D reset, maybe there's opportunities at the start of the season. I mean, that's the case for all the teams here. With the R&D reset, that could really just shuffle things up for the first few races before then we find like a new pattern and, you know, status quo for the rest of the season. I think the first few races here in Season 5 are going to be very big and very important come the end of the season, because there could be some shock results that actually matter come crunch time at the end of the season. So it's going to be a very interesting kind of tale of two parts of the season potentially, as those R&D upgrades come in to overcome the resets. But as you can guess, then we already talked about George Russell not being on the grid. As you can guess, we did get rid of Leclerc and Tramnitz, and I feared this would happen. And it has happened, and in a way, I'm glad it's happened so that we can highlight this glaring problem on F1 25 now. As much as I have heaped praise on the transfers being much better than they were in F1 24, that's not saying a lot, because they were abysmal in F1 24 and non-existent. But now we've got a system that is just idiotic, because how is Charles Leclerc or Tim Tramnitz, two world champions now in this save, not getting a seat on the grid? There should be a logic system in the back end of the coding that just says, you're a world champion, you should definitely try and get a seat, unless you're too old. For example, Hamilton, it makes sense that he's not on the grid anymore. But Leclerc and Tramnitz, young enough definitely to be world champions that deserve to be on the grid. There definitely needs to be a logic system where it's just like weighting, you know, a driver with a championship higher than their expense or whatever. It's a travesty that they're all not on the grid. It's also a travesty that Ollie Behrman is not on the grid, because I feel like all the kind of rising stars of real life Formula 1, they're getting really put over in this series and on this game because the AI teams are not signing them. But nonetheless, maybe that's a topic for a different video to really get into it. I'm still really excited for this next season because of the car performance reset. We still have some really exciting transfers in the top teams. Colapinto alongside Gasly in the Red Bull. We've got Piastri and Antonelli. We've obviously got Honda and Williams both improving, with now Tsunoda over 90 rated. Bortoleto might be 90 rated by the time the season really gets underway. So those are really exciting developments, and I think that is potentially where the fight is going to be. And of course, the Mercedes team with the reigning champion of 99 rated Lando Norris and Verstappen dragging that McLaren up there. So guys, if you have enjoyed this pre-season video for Season 5, be sure to hit the like button. If you're looking forward to it, let me know in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time for the start of Season 5. Goodbye.